Galaxy, and it's a showcase for all your technologies and the beta testing that will be going on around us. The idea was to get a lot of organizations together, showcase them, be ready for research. What does that look like?
If you choose to fight, 60% of my short-term memory is gone regularly in 30 seconds. I don't often recognize where I am in familiar places. See people that I've known all my life that I don't recognize.
I'm Beene Smith, and I suffer from Alzheimer's disease.
What does that look like? A virtual research-ready network. We smart track our brain vitals. A brain vital, what about that? Share our data. We are on a mission. It is not just my Apple Watch, which is reminding me to stand up right now.
Assume that Alzheimer's is the end stage. Someone in a nursing home, in a bed who can't speak. It is the end stage, but the beginning is where I am in early onset.
Minorities are underrepresented in research, so we may not be getting the best possible care.
When you look at your prized possession, which is my mind, was my best friend, and now I don't know if there's any chance for reconciliation.
Brain span, lifespan, that's a longevity conversation.
I'm going to find out.
This is the platform. We are now aggregating people where they live. We are looking at closed Facebook community support groups. We are your beta testers. We are ready, but bring us in early in the design. Let us help you. We are an accelerant to your product design, and we will connect you with all the experts in our space. We are on a mission. We are desperate for something going on, and that's why I'm this EG cheerleader for two of the technologies you're about to hear from, because alone they were very powerful and important in our space, but what happens when you begin to connect them? Improvement. So I'm going to turn it back to Robin. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Meryl. So you can see the power behind somebody who truly is on a mission. And Meryl, I don't know what the space would be like if you weren't in it, to be very honest. The Galaxy platform, as Meryl said, really is an online platform to be able to showcase some of the promising tools and technologies that are out there for people living with Alzheimer's, for researchers, for caregivers, and for what we call the worried well. As Meryl mentioned, in her role with Geoffrey Beene, she has funded Roobrik and the integration with Antidote, two of the technologies that were launched as an integration actually today. And it is my pleasure to introduce first Nate O'Keefe, one of the co-founders of Roobrik, and then Tyler, whose name I always mess up, Trueg, who is clinical director at Antidote, formerly known as TrialReach. What I'd like to do is ask Nate to come up first and talk about Roobrik, and he will be followed by Tyler to talk about Antidote. But again, both of these tools can be accessed separately, but also through Galaxy, and we'd love for you to go to galaxybraintrust.org and take a look at all of the videos that you saw here and the two technologies, see how they work together, and we'll have some time at the end for questions. Let me now turn the podium over to Nate.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Meryl and Robin, for the kind introduction and the invitation to be part of this panel today. We are honored to be here and excited to see some enthusiasm around this topic. Again, my name is Nate O'Keefe. I'm co-founder and CEO of a company called Roobrik. At Roobrik, we build consumer-facing online tools that help people make these really difficult health and care decisions, primarily around issues related to getting older and caregiving. We're here today to talk about this challenge of how do you take someone from these early moments of observation and concern, a repeated story, a lost set of car keys, a missed appointment, 1,000 steps down the path of thinking, well, maybe it's time to think about being part of a clinical trial or some other form of clinical research. To illustrate this challenge, I actually have a question for you all here today that I promise is relevant. How many of you have ever had to deal with a minor household plumbing issue? So show of hands, a dripping faucet, a slow drain, a running toilet. Okay, most of us. How many of you ever Googled a minor household plumbing issue? Again, most of us. Well, imagine if you had gone to Google, you typed in dripping faucet, and all of a sudden you were bombarded with ads from companies that wanted to replace all the plumbing in your house and completely remodel your kitchen. You might say, well, wait a second, what if it's just a 50-cent gasket? I can just replace that up in the faucet. Or maybe I can go to Home Depot and I can buy a new faucet, that'll take care of this problem. Or, you know, the drip really is not all that bad. Maybe I can live with this for a couple months or even years. This is kind of what's happening in Alzheimer's trial recruitment today, is we're trying to reach people who are at the very beginning of this process. They're noticing changes, but they have very little context for what they mean, how serious they are, what they might mean in the future. And we're asking them to consider what seems to them to be a very extreme intervention. Participating in a clinical trial for an experimental medication. It's no wonder we're having some trouble recruiting and reaching people, engaging people around this subject. We're excited today to be part of this partnership that has launched today to see if we can make a difference here. I wanted to share a little bit of the backstory of Roobrik. I'm not really slide heavy today. This was actually supposed to go up about a minute ago. So Roobrik is my second startup. In 2006, I co-founded an early mobile healthcare app company. We were called Modality. Our claim to fame was we had 4 of the first 500 apps in the App Store when it launched way back in June of 2008. So at one point, we could lay claim to nearly 1% of the entire App Store catalog, a feat that would last for about 36 hours. We were acquired by a company called Hippocrates, a West Coast mobile medical app company. Physicians may be aware of it. I worked at Hippocrates for about 2.5 years in product management until they were acquired by Athena Health, of course, right across the river here in Watertown. My co-founder, Judy Conaway, who's here today, and I started Roobrik after these separate, significant care experiences at opposite ends of the age spectrum. So in 2011, my third child was born a 26-week preemie, super early. We got lucky, he's doing really well. And Judy's been a family caregiver for her mother and her in-laws for more than 17 years. Our shared experience was just how difficult it is to become informed online when you're in a crisis. We're all kind of used to this familiar experience now, where you notice a change. You go to Google, and guessing at keywords, and then sifting through the results, looking for any tidbit of information that feels like it's relevant to what feels like a very unique situation. As a digital product person, I found this to be an incredibly frustrating experience. This notion that you first have to become an expert at online research before you can become an informed decision maker struck me as both ridiculous but also solvable. And that became the kernel of Roobrik, this idea that if Google or WebMD or some other platform had just asked me a few questions about my situation, it should be able to bring back a much more curated set of tools, content, information, resources that are structured around an informed decision-making process. And so that's what we built. The first tool we released is called Is It Still Safe to Drive? Classic gateway caregiving issue. We followed on that with Is It Time to Get Help? And beta testing right now is a tool called Are These Memory and Thinking Issues Serious? Essentially is what we're seeing in dementia. These all follow an assessment-driven approach. We typically ask 15 to 25 questions. It sounds like a lot. It's not when people are engaged around this issue. And then we synthesize the responses in what we call a decision dashboard, which typically has a couple of components. Primarily, there's a score. It might be a fit score. It might be a concern score, but everybody likes to get a number. And for a lot of people in these situations, this is the first time they've gotten a baseline for what has felt like a very amorphous set of concerns and observations. It gives them something to say, okay, well, this is where I am, moderate concern or low concern or a good fit, something that they can begin to hang on to. We deliver some recommendations based on that, and then we give you this first-person report that says, this is my situation, and a summary of everything you've shared that you can share with other family members, share with care providers, share with your clinician. I'll show a couple of screens from the tool in just a moment. You're probably wondering, does this actually work? I have one more question for you all today. Raise your hands if you have ever in your lives clicked on a random Google ad, gone to a completely unknown brand, answered 24 personal questions, and then opted in to share not only your results but also your contact information. I can wait. We were blown away to see that 10% of our clicks were doing exactly that. 17% are completing the assessments. More than half of them are opting in to share their information. That's about 5 times higher than our best projections for what we thought we were going to see when we launched these tools. There's something about this approach, this model of engaging people around assessments that is applicable not just here, but I think everybody should be threading assessments into the work they're doing. One other thing we noticed with Is It Time to Get Help, this tool, is that 90% of the people going through it were noting issues consistent with cognitive decline. Yet only 10% were indicating that they had a diagnosis. And so that, for us, highlighted this unique ability to reach and engage people in exactly this life phase that we're talking about. They're noticing changes, they're burning up the internet trying to find some context for it, but they still may be years away from actually engaging with their care provider. As we talked about, this is a prime time to try and engage people around, is clinical research a good idea for us? So that led us to Meryl, to this group here that we've been delighted to be working with for the past 9 months. There are 2 components to the program that Roobrik is contributing to here. One is this widening of the funnels, using these tools. Is it still safe to drive? Is it time to get help? Is what we're seeing dementia? And to catch people in their moment of concern and offer them the opportunity to say, hey, maybe I should be thinking about clinical research. That gets people halfway there. What we found is that when they get to that halfway point, clinical research, a clinical trial is still opaque and kind of scary. So we said, well, I think we need another solution here to address this. And so we built a new tool called Is Clinical Research Right for Us? So this is a little bit further down the funnel. And this is still an assessment-driven approach. I want to share just a couple of screens here. This is not a live demo, just to give you a taste of it. This is the landing page, did that central question around is clinical research right for us, front and center. The right-hand side of the screen is around expectation management. It's only going to take you 3 or 4 minutes. You'll understand your fit for research. You'll learn more about the process. You can get connected to studies and learn what is a registry. This is an assessment-driven approach. First question is a personalizing question. Who are you concerned about? You can select mom or dad, spouse. You can select other person you don't want to say. You can say myself. This personalizes the rest of the assessment. This is an example question around dispositional fit. So there are a lot of reasons you can not feel ready for a clinical trial. One might be your disposition is not the right disposition. So this question is around, is your mom generally comfortable talking to doctors and nurses and filling out paperwork? Yes, she is. Not really. She often needs help. Not at all. She avoids it when possible. And over on the right-hand side, you can see we can introduce some context around this, around the process of informed consent. So a question like this serves 2 purposes. It informs people around a particular aspect of clinical research, informed consent, but it also gives the person responding a chance to say, I do have some anxieties around this, and that's maybe one of the reasons I haven't thought about it before. I'm not comfortable talking with my provider. When they opt to share this, then it creates a dialogue that was not there before. Another example question around another opaque part of clinical research, a placebo, a stat, sugar pill. Would I be okay with this? I don't know. And then another question around logistical fit. A lot of studies, of course, require you to have a study partner who can accompany you and support you in the process. Is there a family member or friend who can be a study partner to help your mom if needed? Yes, I have someone in mind. Maybe, I think there are some people who could help. I'm not sure, I'll have to think about it. There's not a hard no here, because a hard no is not productive for anybody. But if you can say, I'm not sure, I'll have to think about it, that's a signal to whoever you're talking to that this might be a person where we need to offer a little bit of additional support at all stages of the process. So we synthesize your results into what we call your decision dashboard. Your result. You're a great fit. You could be a good fit, you could be a limited fit. You're never a horrible fit, you're never a perfect fit, but this is meant to be engaging and motivating. What does that mean? Well, based on what you told us, it sounds like your mom is a great candidate for clinical research. She's open-minded about her options, and she has flexibility with how and when she participates. Here's what you can do. At the bottom, you summarize your situation, so you now have this record of the things that someone who's talking to you about clinical research is going to care about. It's going to be important for matching a person to the study. Now, on the right-hand side, well, what can you do about that? Find and register your online study. These are easy things you can do from home. Anybody can do them. Learn about clinical research. Talk with your doctor. What's that process like? Understand the pros and cons. There are some of both. Maintain healthy habits and a plan for the future. Second down on that list is find a clinical trial, which is a jungle of a process. We don't solve the problem of finding a clinical trial. We take you just about this far. This is what you can expect when you start to search, but you need people like Tyler from Antidote to actually help you navigate that part of the landscape. So with that, I'll introduce Tyler. Thank you all.
Thank you, Nate. My name is Tyler Trueg. I'm the clinical director of Antidote. So excited to be a part of Galaxy and be working with great partners such as Roobrik. Robin mentioned when we started that our name has changed. I want to give a little bit of background on that. Many of you may know us as TrialReach. And historically, we've been a recruitment company. So we work with clinical trial sponsors. We take your one trial. We will work with different patient advocacy groups, other organizations to try to match patients to your one trial. And that's been going really well, but we wanted to be a little bit bigger than that. We saw a huge opportunity in the market to connect patients to research in a much different way. And what kind of really started it for us is we were really frustrated at some other great products that are in the market. An example would be Kayak. So if I can go to any one airline, I can search for a flight, that's great. But there are sites where I can search for all flights at any moment with price changes, and it's an amazing piece of technology. And it was really frustrating for us because we were unable to have something similar to that for clinical research, which seems like it'd be a really helpful thing. So what we did is we went to go a little bit bigger than what we were aspiring to be for TrialReach, and we changed it to something like this. So Antidote is accelerating the breakthroughs of new treatments by bridging the gap between medical research and the people who need them. So put a different way, we're trying to find a way to get all patients access to all available trials. And it turns out that's a really hard problem. If you have ever gone on clinicaltrials.gov as an example, you will find that you can go and answer maybe a couple questions, there's some advanced filtering, but ultimately you're gonna have a lot you have to sift through. And I actually just checked earlier today, and there are 207 Alzheimer's trials. Now, the problem that Robin had mentioned earlier, Meryl had mentioned earlier, is that we're not even entirely sure if everyone's understanding that research is an option. So if we don't know it's an option, there's 207 trials right now available for research. How are we going to get through this? So Nate with Roobrik is really getting us into a great opportunity for understanding when is the right time for research, but what happens then? So thank you for that comment, and that we're taking the next step. And we've been spending quite a bit of time. So this has been a product that I'm about to show you that's been in development for almost 2 years now. It's taken a lot of time. And the reason is it's really difficult for a couple things. One, the data available for clinical trials is really messy. And we have put a lot of care and effort into fixing that. And the other part is putting it in the context of the patient is not a simple challenge. So we can organize the data with a great engineering team that's able to organize all the information and make some really interesting technology. But if patients don't understand and don't know how to use it, how do we tackle that? So I'd like to talk a little bit about how we're tackling this, and this is the technology that Meryl had mentioned as part of Galaxy. We call it Antidote Match. This is the most advanced, patient-friendly clinical trial search tool available. We use a blend of natural language processing, machine learning, some artificial intelligence to help dynamically generate the next question of going through all of the different trials of what's the next most relevant question to figure out the trial for you. So we do this by taking all of that eligibility from clinicaltrials.gov, which is in a free text format. If you're familiar with how to deal with free text, it's really exciting and very complicated. In fact, it's impossible. So what we've done is we've structured the eligibility criteria, and our goal is for all U.S. trials. Now for this, we're talking about Alzheimer's, and we have that available today on our website, on Galaxy, on Roobrik, and on a lot of other partners. And we wanted this to be something that was approachable. We wanted this to be easy to use, accessible where you are. So great if you come to our website, but we want it to be where all the patients were. They're actively right now. And so that's where our Connect, our partner network, comes in. So I'd like to show you a little bit about this product here. So this is an example. This is just our website, but you'll notice that the player part, the widget below, is the same thing that you saw Roobrik on Galaxy, and this is available. We wanted to give the technology away for free. Our goal is to match patients to trials to allow you to access this research in a way that's never been done before, and we get it into as many hands as we can. So once you do that, it starts very simply. What's the next thing I want to ask you that's going to help you figure out the trial that you should be considering? And in this case, you can say, let's take a 55-year-old male, and that already went through Roobrik and decided that this was an opportunity for myself. And pick a distance, I pick a location, and we dive right in. So, do you currently have Alzheimer's disease? Now, the data behind this is incredibly complicated. That we have to take the eligibility criteria from every single trial for Alzheimer's. We have to do a process called normalization to make it all talk to each other. So, if I say I have Alzheimer's disease, do I have to mention that again for the next trial, or the next trial, or the next trial? And the problem is that was our old process, and a process you see in a lot of places today. I can find a single trial and answer 10 questions, and it will tell me if I'm potentially eligible or if I should consider it. But what about 207? So keep that number in mind. And these are screenshots. It's not a live demo. Happy to show individuals later. But these were taken from the live website. So I answer a single question, and now I'm at 29. So automatically, I filtered through a lot of noise. And it's not necessarily that those aren't good trials. They're just trials that I'm not eligible for. And so we really, time is of the essence, and we really want to make sure that people can fine-tune their search to really find the trial that's right for them. So then we'll dive deeper. So we've gone from some of the higher level questions of disease, male, female, and this is something that's never been done. But we can go into individual drug questions, lab questions, and there's somewhat of over 4,000 available questions of all the eligibility criteria. It's an insane number, and it grows every single day. We have a huge, amazing team of medical annotators, an army of them rather, that's going through all of this data. And probably a number of trials have already been structured while I'm talking about this. But once you're done answering the questions, you go right into the results. Now, I can filter through all these results. You scan through, gives a little bit of information on how far is this? Is it enrolling? Which it should be. What type is this? Is this an interventional trial? Am I going to receive a drug potentially? Or is this a registry? We allow the patient to make that decision on their own, for them to decide what type of trial they should be interested in. Our job is to get all this information out there for you to decide. So once you're in, you get to a study page. Now this is an interesting example here on this study page. This is one that we pull, all of our data comes from clinicaltrials.gov, so we use the registry as a backbone. We have special data for the eligibility criteria that help you navigate it. But when you get to the study page, we still have to show you what is this trial about. And you'll look at this description, and the first thing I notice is that this isn't really built for patients. This is really to showcase just a good description of the trial. I come from a scientific background. It sounds like a scientific description. And what we've also developed is we're partnering with a number of clinical trial sponsors, from big pharma down to academic centers, small biotechs, anyone who sponsors a clinical trial. We allow for them, through a product called Antidote Bridge, to come into our platform and to add information and make it a little bit easier to understand for patients. But more importantly, add information that's not in the registry as it is. So this isn't an example of it, but you can see this is some basic information, trial summary. You can find all this on clinicaltrials.gov. But imagine if, in going through different questions, I can find out what procedures are going to be done. Am I going to be able to take this drug after the study's over? Is there financial compensation? I have to leave work for this. Is there an overnight visit? How long is this going to take? These aren't secret questions, they're not proprietary, but they're incredibly important. And patients have been asking for this, so we work with sponsors directly to allow them to upload this and put it on their trials. And this information will be available in Match as well. So if you've updated your study in Bridge, it's showed right there in Match. And finally, if this is the trial for me and I really want to learn more, we connect you to the site directly. So this is made available through contact information from the registry or extra contact information that you have provided us. And it's as simple as any other web app. So we've gone from this crazy complicated, I love this term, jungle of data for clinical trials, and make it into something where I can pull out a phone, I can look at my computer, I can answer a few questions, I compare one trial to the next, see if it's going to fit into my life, and even go down, put in my name, email, number, push send, and that's it. Thank you.
Okay, we have just a few minutes left. If anybody has any questions for Meryl, Nate, or Tyler, just shout it out, because it's really hard to see. And I know there are people with microphones. Anybody? Meryl, do you want to say something if people do have tools or technologies that they're working on that they might be interested in Galaxy as a platform? What's the best way to reach you or talk to you about that?
Yes. I just want to make one point. When you have a disease with stigma attached, and you go virtual and online, you have bypassed stigma and ageism and opened a doorway and a conversation with people who you cannot touch otherwise, or who are first conversations. That is the power of Roobrik. We view Galaxy as a showcase and a platform, and we are an aggregator for you. We were an aggregator. How long would it take any of the startups in this room to get an appointment at NIA to be in front of one of the directors or the head who engaged in helping to beta test their product? Because we are the intermediary. We are a desperate patient population. We have our pulse on the subject experts. So how long does it typically take you, Nate, to actually design a product? And what were we as an accelerant for you?
Sure. So we rely. We have some in-house subject matter expertise. We have an occupational therapist on our team who's very good at honing in on the key things we need to get to in an assessment. But we rely on outside subject matter expertise for areas where we don't have that built in on the team. As part of this program, we, as Meryl mentioned, I think we put forth our initial proposal for the question set in July, and within a week we had feedback from the NIA, from Banner, from UCSF, from Mayo, from Cleveland, and a host of other folks that if we were trying to seek that on our own, we'd be knocking on a lot of doors and getting a lot of unreturned emails. And so part of it is an accelerant in speed. I think that bought us easily a month in launch time, but certainly and inarguably an accelerant in quality. I mean, having all those folks weigh in, sometimes with consistent opinions, sometimes with varying opinions, really allows us to shape what is the right product to get out there first. So what you see there today already reflects feedback from some of the leading subject matter experts in all this space.
And I want to thank them both because they didn't treat us like a nuisance, which many do, quite frankly. Because in the beta testing mode, we also engage with people who are living with Alzheimer's because the diagnostics are getting better in our space. We have to respect those who are in the early stages of MCI. And in fact, that informed both of your products. Tyler?
Yeah, I mean, one huge component for us, hopefully you can hear me, one big component for us was not so much about the technology, but Meryl was really helpful in helping us put it into the mindset of what type of patient is using this. So we work with a variety of different conditions, well beyond Alzheimer's. And we tried to have a single product that could serve as many people as possible, which is quite a challenge. So we spent quite a bit of time in not just like, okay, great, the interface looks good, it's pretty simple, I can move through it, but the phrasing on that question, it's not really how I would do it. That's a really sensitive topic. And that was huge feedback in the iterative testing. So I would actually argue thank you for being patient with us on going back and forth with all the different changes. But it's been a really great experience.
So come our way.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I think our time is just about up. So if you'd like
can I ask a question?
Oh, beg your pardon, please.
Here, this side.
Okay.
Okay.
There you are.
All right. Yeah, so we actually, one of the 4 finalists this afternoon going to be pitching for the 50 plus Fit Mind Challenge. And my company is called Dance for Healing. There's a research published in 2003 funded by National Institute of Aging, reveal out of walking, biking, running, golf, tennis, dancing, and then daily activity like reading, writing, solving puzzles. Dancing turns out to be the only physical activity shows the result reducing dementia and the highest by 76%. And so we would love to be able to set up a clinical trial, potentially collaborating with you guys. Part of the question, because we actually currently working with Stanford Integrated Medicine and the Geriatric Education Center to set up a trial. This first one, we start with cancer patients, and part of the reason is myself, the cancer survivor, but also the Alzheimer's. My understanding is difficult to track, so that, how do you validate like before and after intervention? One question is like, have you guys working with any company who does this kind of physical activity tracking in a live video platform, not just in person, actually enable this for patients to do it at home, and then, how do we able to structure that? Because it would be really cool if we could validate this previous research.
Well, absolutely, let's take that offline. The notion that the area that you're studying, my husband maintained his brain. He was a long-distance runner, had over 200 published papers, spoke 4 languages, and it just didn't matter. So all of these are risk-modifying strategies, which we do support in the prevention space. So we're happy to talk to you.
I can't see, but is that you, Amy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll figure it out.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Any other questions?
Robin, I think that there are some questions in the back, but we are out of time, so I wonder if people could approach you over on the side during the...
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And if you would join me in thanking our panel.